funders that said we're only giving you money to do U.S.-China, we probably wouldn't have been able to make the workshop happen because there were so many different things we were trying to do as a delegation. There were all these campaigns that everybody wanted to get us to get involved in, and we were split between doing all this Youngo stuff, and then we were also, trying to, everybody was like, well, what about us? You don't care about the Japanese, you don't care about the Indians, what about everybody else? If not for the fact that funding came in specifically to do U.S.-China, we probably wouldn't have been able to make that workshop happen. So leading up to the workshop, we had a couple meetings with Ben and Marcy and Holly Jones, and Lena was in those meetings, and Shane and Ann and some of the other organizers from last year's delegation. And we kind of got together, and it was very high level. It was really literally like it has to start somewhere. If we don't start, it doesn't exist. So there was no U.S.-China youth collaboration until it starts. So we wanted to start it on a platform in Copenhagen, and I think that a lot of skepticism I think that I'm really, really glad, and it really makes me feel good to hear everybody say that it was actually a highlight, because I did want to focus on things that were productive and constructive rather than conflictive and destructive, which I felt like a lot of the negotiations were focused around, and a lot of the civil society activity was actually focused around. I wanted to build something. I didn't want to tear down what other people were doing, and I hope that this year we'll do the same. So this year, actually, after what happened in Copenhagen, we learned a lot. One of the things that we learned was that there was a lot to learn. One of the things we learned was that the youth had a lot to learn from each other, and Americans and Chinese do think things in very different ways, and it did create a lot of challenges. But one thing that we realized was also that what I kind of talk about consistently here was that youth didn't have credibility. So people weren't going to throw money at me to do this stuff. In terms of the bigger issues like climate change, there was a huge challenge of, well, what actually can youth do? And why should I give you money? Is it to educate you? If it's to educate you, why am I paying for your education when I could be spending money on things that can actually create change in negotiations or something like that? There was a lot of negativity from people that had influence and funding to do this. It was not easy to continue the collaboration. So we sent out a few emails after the collaboration, but everyone was so exhausted from Copenhagen. Everyone was so exhausted at Copenhagen, after Copenhagen, that it was really difficult. I didn't get any responses. Even from the core organizers last year with Ben and Holly, everyone was so exhausted from Copenhagen, so depressed after Copenhagen, that it was really, really difficult to get things back together. And with youth, everybody goes back to school. So from that standpoint, I didn't necessarily have the capacity to build up more U.S.-China youth stuff, even though it's something that I really wanted to do, but I had money to do something else, so I got pulled off. Shane, who was leading the delegation last year, went back to school this year, but he was trying to focus on actually getting GPR and 10-10-10 and 350 stuff ready before he went back to school. We didn't get any response from the American side. When we sent out emails, I had sent out a couple blasts and said, hey, who wants to follow up on the opinion editorials? And there were some, but it's like, until you have the funding to really, and the plan together, then it's just really, really hard. And until youth have more credibility, it's really, really hard to get a lot of people to support us. So this year I wanted to focus on building credibility for the group, creating individuals that will garner respect for what they're saying. So that includes a lot of capacity building this year, I'm hoping, in terms of educating us on exactly what are these issues. Can you speak intelligently about what the issues are, both technically and culturally?